Okay, welcome to the second part of this tutorial. We're going to get straight into the process, basically. I'm going to close out this, basically start from scratch. So I'll create a new file. Audio, no input. Outputs 1 and 2. And now we need our audio files. And so to do this, basically all you need is anything in an audio format. If it's in a WAV format, MP3, MP4, whatever the case may be. After downloading, you can simply drag it to LogicProX. So I'm in the file called bathroom. So I'm going to download all of this. Okay, so we have all our files here after downloading. And so some of these are duplicates, but we're going to go ahead and select all of them except this one. Whoops. And we should be able to drag this down into here, as long as they are all some sort of audio format. It should work. And you're going to create new tracks. That way it'll separate each audio file into its own track. And here we have about 19 different files. Some of them are duplicates. Okay, so once we have all those down, we're going to need the template. And there's 3 of them, which is find the, look at the, and where's the. So we have find the here already downloaded. So I'm just going to drag this here. I'm going to shorten this since we don't really need that much. Okay. Going to get the second template, which I have not downloaded. So I have find the, so I need to download look at the. Download this. Should be there. I'm going to go to the top, hit track, select new audio track, and drag my download here. Again, we have a lot of extra space we don't need. That's not very audible. So I'll shorten that and just sort of scoot it down here. And from here we have all the audio files that we need, with the exception of some duplicates. And I believe for the duplicates, you can just pick one of them, whichever one sounds good to you. So here we have brush twice, and since I'm going to just delete one of them, so delete. Find the brush is also duplicated, so I'll just delete one of them. And yeah. So it looks to me like tracks 13 through 18 are just the words by themselves, lipstick, lotion, and so forth, as opposed to these ones up top here. These are the actual complete sentences. So I don't need the words by themselves. I'm just going to delete those, as well as the tracks. So here we are with about 12 tracks. I did say you'll have about 20, and you will, because you will have to essentially duplicate all of these here. Looks like I have some extra single words that are by themselves, so I'll go ahead and delete those. Okay, so we have our templates, which are the two up top here. So I'm going to hit Option C and color code those as red. And the rest I will just leave as blue. So what we're going to do here is we can't work with all of these at the same time because it would just be crazy. So what we're going to do is we're going to mute one of these. I'm going to mute find the for now. And we're going to basically look at the in accordance with all the other phrases. So I'm going to go to the first track, the first sentence, not the template, the sentence. And I'm going to solo this and just hear how it sounds. I'm going to try to keep it within one bar.
Find the brush.
Okay. So the first thing I do is I open up my mixer, press X, scroll up to the track that's highlighted, and press the EQ. I'm going to turn the analyzer on. That way I can get a visual representation of what I'm hearing here in terms of frequency.
Find the brush. Find the brush. Find the brush.
So I don't hear any discrepancies. I will turn down the low end just a little bit, just to make sure there's not too much low end coming in.
Find the brush.
Gonna close that out. And what I forgot to mention in the previous video is when you're opening your multimeter and when you're opening your loudness meter, you're going to put those on the stereo out. So that's this one here. Under audio effects, go all the way to the track, and I'm going to find, let's see here, my loudness meter. And since I don't really need the multimeter, it's just if you want to use it, you can. I'm just going to have this open. Just the loudness meter is going to be open here. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is scoop out the template that's a part of this sentence. So if I stop it here, that's where brush sort of begins. So I'm just going to scoop that out a little bit.
The brush.
Okay. Get rid of the. There's a little bit of sound coming in there, so I'm going to cut a little bit more. And then with my fade tool, I'm going to just make this just fade it on both ends. Just so the sound isn't so abrupt. And make sure you're not fading it this far, because then you are getting rid of some information, especially the B sound. So if I really exaggerate this, you won't quite hear the B in the brush. Kind of sounds like rush. So Command Z just to undo those. Okay. And on this channel here, I am going to set a limiter. So find my limiter here. It's going to be in dynamics. Limiter. And here's how it's going to work. I have the limiter open, and this is a representation of the stereo out, which gives me quick access to my loudness meter, which I'll just keep open right here. Okay. And I want my output level to be less than 0, so put about negative 0.3 just to be a little conservative about that. It's on legacy mode, softening is on, good, check. Now the release, I am going to set about 20 milliseconds. I don't want it too fast. And my look ahead, I'm going to raise it just to about 5. The more look ahead, the smoother the transition, because you have more, the system has more time to react. Even though it's, 5% of a second, doesn't seem like much, but it should be enough time. So now I am going to mute the sound so I don't go crazy while I'm continually looping it. And the parameters that we have been using for each of the audio files already worked with is the peak level here. We set around -10. So I'm going to turn the volume fader to about -10. And we want the integrated number here to read about -20. And just to give you an idea, -15 integrated LUFS is about the industry standard for television, and around -10 and higher is electronic music and pop music and such. So I start the meter. Looks like I'm a little low on my integrated value here, so I'm going to increase the gain just gradually until I start to see some reduction. So once I start to see some reduction, I'm going to go ahead and reset this because it's still counting averages from when the gain was at 0. So I'll reset this, number should change. So it's around -22 instead. We're getting a little bit closer. Raise it just a couple decibels, I think 8 might just do. Reset this. We're at about -21, so raise this just a half decibel more and reset it. Maybe one more. Okay, so I'm within my parameters here. I'm at -10 peak value, as well as about a -20 integrated value. And it's not perfectly at -20, which is fine. Just as a rule of thumb, I'm going to try to have sort of a standard error of about 1 decibel, 1.5 decibel. So I don't want it going a decibel and a half more or less. I want to keep it as close to -20 as I can. So I'm happy with -20.2, and we are at -10 for the peak value. And we're going to close this out. And once you do that, you're going to want to listen to it audibly. So turn on the sound.
Brush. Brush.
Okay. So this one is all set to go. And it will be a case-by-case basis since speech is not uniform. Brush is not going to sound the same as comb in terms of the diversity of its loudness. And before I continue with the rest of these, I'm going to go to the template and treat this one. I'm going to solo it, unsolo this one, and set this to -10. On the track here, I'm going to add my limiter. Another thing you can do is you can go into the limiter that you previously used, and you can copy it. And then you can go back into this one here and open that limiter and paste it. And it'll paste the exact same parameters so that you don't have to constantly mess with the output level, the release, and the look ahead. The only one that probably will change is the gain. So we'll set that to 0 and gradually go up again. Bring up my loudness meter. Reset it. Mute it so I don't go insane. And play it. And it looks like it is pretty close without any gain. So this is what I mean when I say it's a case-by-case basis. Is some recordings are just naturally louder or quieter than others. So I'm just going to raise it about a half decibel. And then go ahead and reset. Alright, so that seems good to me. Also, this little yellow line here represents your own personal threshold. So for us, it's about -20. So if it's going over, it'll change colors to let you know that you're going a little high. But we're not too concerned about just touching it and going over a little bit. Okay. So once that is done, I'm going to close these out here. Listen to it audibly.
Look at the.
Okay. So I didn't notice any discrepancies audibly. If I really wanted to check on the visual spectrum, I could turn this analyzer on here on the channel EQ.
Look at the. Look at the.
And just to be precautious, I'll scoop out just a little bit of the low end. It's just a force of habit. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I have the template ready to go, and I have one of my words finished. So I have look at the done as well as brush done. So what I'm going to do now is take both of these files and sort of fit them together. We have look at the brush. That's how it should sound. It shouldn't say look at the brush. We want it to follow sort of a cadence.
Look at the brush.
So I'm going to move it just a little bit. It sounds just a little bit off.
Look at the brush. Look at the brush.
Okay, so that sounds pretty good to me. I'm going to scoot this down a little bit, add a fade.
Look at the brush.
And I'm going to go ahead and keep the loop marker from bar 1 to bar 2. That's going to be the length of the audio file, which is approximately 1 second.
Look at the brush. Look at the brush.
Okay, so audibly it sounds fine. I don't notice any discrepancies. I'm going to press E to look at the file and just remove the DC offset. Just barely. I'm going to do the same for brush. Looks like there's no DC offset for that file. Okay. And so once you are done with that, you're going to go ahead and do the same for the rest of these files. So we're going to unsolo that one and solo the next one by itself. We're going to treat it And after we get our desired parameters of -10 at the peak value and about -20 at the loudness value, perceived loudness value, you are going to do the same for the rest of the files. So I'm not going to do that just for the sake of the video, but let's just assume that everything was finished. Okay. I'm going to press E to get out of it, out of the editor mode, so I can see a little bit more. So we have look at the done. Let's assume we did find the. So I'm just going to move this down here. And then for tracks 2 through 9, I'm going to copy them below find the, assuming that they all have been treated. So I'm going to hold Option, click and drag. Squeeze this down a little bit. Okay, so once you have copied the single words that are by themselves down to here, we are going to go ahead and bounce those files out. So let's just say I already bounced these here, and mind you, this template here, look at the, corresponds to all of these down to track 9. And the great thing is, once you have treated all of the single words by themselves and have copied them down here, they're basically exactly the same, so you don't need to go back and treat them again. They're already treated. All you need to concern yourself with is making sure the placement is right in terms of how the sentence sounds. So let's assume we already bounced these out. We are going to go ahead and bounce these out. So solo this one and solo the second one. In this case, it's going to be find the brush. So I'll go ahead and bounce this here under File, Bounce, Project or Section. Keep it on PCM. We want it to start at bar 1 and end at bar 2, which is important just to keep everything consistent. We're going to keep the mode off of real time. Keep the overload protection on. And we're going to bounce the file format into WAV. The resolution, 16-bit, is fine. Do not touch this. Make sure it's on 44/100 always. That is the sample rate for sound. The file type interleaved, and the dithering at POWR1 dithering. Then you press OK, and you name the file. So in this case, it's going to be find the brush. Bounce that out. And the file is now saved into your computer. And so you're going to do the rest of that for each of the following. So you're going to unsolo that one, solo the next one, bounce that one out, unsolo that one, solo the next one, bounce that one out, and so forth until you're done. The most important thing here is just consistency. So make sure you're keeping the parameters within -10 decibels at a peak level, as well as -20 for the loudness level. Make sure you're not hearing any discrepancies, and make sure the timing is the same, keeping it from 1 bar to 2 bars. So make sure beyond this point there is no audio file. So we would need to move all of these so that they're not being cut off when we're saving the file and finalizing the file. Another thing I should tell you guys is when you're moving on to the next files, so for this one it's bathroom, let's say the next file is drinks. So I'm going to close this out and open a brand new file and do everything we just did, except I don't necessarily need to treat the templates anymore because I can just grab those from the previous project. So in order to do that, you'll go to the top right, which is the browser. So it should be located under all files. You're going to find the project that you were working on. So in this case I called it lab tutorial. So I'll click on this and it'll show up all the tracks here, and all you need to do is find the template. So I have look at the and find the down here. If I stretch this out a bit, you're going to press content, check mark that, as well as check mark the plugins, and do the same for find the, and press add. And once you do that, it will add it to your project. So as you can see, everything was basically loaded exactly from our previous project into our current project, which just helps us be a little more efficient so that we're not working on the same thing over and over. So that's gonna wrap up this video. I hope I didn't confuse you all. It is a lot. It's not an easy process. It is a trial and error process. And that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thanks.